On November 22nd, 1963, only 3 things truly mattered. First, one shot hit Kennedy in the spine and froze him. Second, one man saw it from the tower above the plaza. Third, one call made hours before Oswald's death never connected. This is the truth they stitched over. Welcome to JFK's American Tapestry, the forensic reconstruction that changes everything. November 22nd, 1963, Dealey Plaza, a sunny Friday in Dallas, Texas, where the autumn leaves were just beginning to change color and fall. And in 8.3 seconds, history was split open. The President of the United States was shot and killed in front of all of the American people. And within hours, the stitching of a story had already begun. But something was wrong. The story didn't fit. The stitches weren't right. Welcome to JFK's American Tapestry, Seams from 63's fall, still binding us, U.S. I'm your host, and in this opening episode, we will begin unraveling this hastily constructed official version of events and the long, uncomfortable threads that still bind our collective conscience today. The poorly tailored shirt, a narrative that never fit. Imagine a button-down shirt, smooth as silk, cufflinks gleaming, tailored for a young, articulate president who embodied grace, vision, and diplomacy. But in an instant, that shirt is torn horizontally in two, sleeves and all, by rifle fire in Dallas. Now, picture it hastily stitched back together with a second fabric, coarse Texas cotton, durable but rough to the touch. The sleeves don't match. The texture shifts halfway down the chest. One side breathes, the other constricts. That's the story of America post-1963, a nation dressed in a half-silk, half-cotton garment. Kennedy's elegance was abruptly fused to Johnson's force, style stitched to grit, inspiration sewn to calculation. The seams were never meant to hold, and when picked at, they tear. Yet we're told a different story, that the fit is flawless, that this patchwork of contradictions is actually seamless, that the narrative as given is tidy, honest, complete. But it's not. And the longer you wear it, the more it chafes. Threads of deception, the rush to stitch a narrative. Let's look at how fast this poorly tailored cover was thrown over the body politic. November 22nd, 1963, 3:15 p.m. Oswald is arrested in a theater, declared the lone gunman before a single day of investigation. November 24th, 1963 in the morning, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, less than 40 hours from the time of the arrest, writes an early morning memo referencing the U.S. Deputy Attorney General. The thing I am concerned about, and so is Mr. Katzenbach, is having something issued so we can convince the public that Oswald is the real assassin. November 24th, 1963, at noon, Oswald is shot dead by Jack Ruby, a man with known underworld and intelligence connections, inside the Dallas Police Department's basement on live television. November 29th, 1963, President Johnson forms the Warren Commission to officially investigate the assassination. All of that within a week. This wasn't a rush. It was a narrative factory, leaving loose threads and ill-tailored seams that bind and then fray and unravel at a rapidly increasing rate. To maintain coherence, contradicting evidence had to be minimized at nearly every turn. A fog of confusion was created, ensuring that no single version of the truth could rise above the noise. The Grand Tapestry, Kennedy's early years. Before we continue unraveling the events of that fateful autumn day, let's remember the first threads of the tapestry Kennedy was weaving for America. Born on May 29, 1917, to a prominent Boston family, John Fitzgerald Kennedy grew up with privilege, but also with a significant health challenge. Despite his medical issues, he developed a love for reading and history. After graduating from Harvard in 1940, Kennedy joined the Navy during World War II, where his courage during the PT-109 incident transformed him into a war hero. This early thread in Kennedy's life, overcoming personal adversity while serving his country with distinction, would become a defining characteristic of his public image. It was the foundation upon which he would later build his political career, demonstrating resilience that would inspire a nation. Fraying at the seams, Oswald's intelligence web. Lee Harvey Oswald was not a loner. He was a former Marine radar operator trained in aviation electronics. He worked on the U-2 spy plane program in Japan, giving him access to some of the most sensitive intelligence of the era. This was not the resume of a confused Marxist. This is someone with technical clearance and likely intelligence connections. After defecting to the Soviet Union in 1959, Oswald somehow returned to the U.S. without prosecution. He brought back a Russian wife and settled in Texas under circumstances that seem suspiciously smooth. But his connections did not end there. As far as CIA proxies and U.S. intelligence contacts, George Demoroshilt, wealthy Russian expatriate oilman and confirmed CIA contact who mentored Oswald in Dallas. David Atlee Phillips, CIA propaganda chief in Latin America, linked to anti-Castro activities, possibly encountered Oswald in Mexico City. Ruth and Michael Payne hosted Oswald's wife, Marina. Michael's family had defense connections. FBI agents and sources. Guy Bannister, former FBI agent whose New Orleans office Oswald used as a return address while leafleting for pro-Castro causes, an odd juxtaposition. Jack Ruby, informal FBI source, closely associated with underworld figures with intelligence ties. Cuban resistance and anti-Castro actors. Carlos Bringuer, anti-Castro Cuban who Oswald fought with in staged incidents. Francisco Rodriguez Tamayo, Cuban exile, Bay of Pigs soldier, and ransomed prisoner, believed to have traveled with Oswald to Mexico City. Sylvia Odio claimed Oswald visited her with anti-Castro Cubans days before the assassination. KGB and pro-Soviet actors. Oswald defected to the USSR in 1959 and was surprisingly allowed back into the U.S. with a Russian wife and no charges. Valery Kostikov, Soviet agent, head of Division 13 of the KGB, who met with Oswald while in Mexico City. Oswald was not a man operating alone. He was a man moving through an international maze of handlers, cutouts, and controlled contact across multiple competing agencies and nations. These narratives of Oswald are like a shirt that simply does not fit. Introducing the threads will follow. This is only the beginning. Across this series, JFK's American Tapestry, Seams from 63's Fall, Still Binding Us US, will pry at multiple seams, each one unraveling with a different aspect of the story. Oswald's intelligence, the connections surrounding Oswald, the guns of 63, ballistics, weapons recovered, firing positions, and overlooked evidence. The deaths, dozens of witnesses and connected individuals who died mysteriously. The men on the steps, still unidentified figures in key photos and footage. The chronology, timeline gaps, contradictions, and minute-by-minute irregularities. the political atmosphere, naivete, ambition, Cold War pressures, communist expansion, and how power moved from Kennedy to Johnson. The theories, from mob to military-industrial, to intelligence, to political rivalry, to foreign plots, and everything in between. Character studies, a personal look into the individuals whose lives intersect with the event. The legacy, how this badly sewn story still affects us. The rise of narrative first, truth and facts last, politics, institutions, and media, weaponized psychology, and seeds of institutional distrust bearing fruit even today. Now, we won't get to all of them in this episode, but you'll hear them woven throughout the series. The cover-up continued. And if the seams weren't already fraying fast, look at what happened next. The presidential limo was rushed away and cleaned before forensic study. The autopsy at Bethesda was so riddled with omissions and irregularities that several doctors later recanted. JFK's brain, an essential piece of evidence, vanished. In Dallas, doctors were silenced, their observations overwritten by the official report. These were not oversights. They were stitches torn out and replaced with thread that didn't match the fabric. What's coming next? In episode 2, we'll go deeper into Oswald's intelligence connections, not just the names, but the strange coincidences and quiet manipulations that suggest a man who was being moved through the corridors far more shadowy than most realize. Well, that is where we are going to hang our half smooth as silk, half gritty yet durable Texas cotton shirt for today. We've begun prying at the first seam in this national tapestry, and already the stitches are slipping. The silk of Kennedy's vision, fused with the cotton of Johnson's machinery, left us wearing a story that was never truly finished. It doesn't fit. It never did. And yet, they told us it was tailored perfectly. Next week, we won't begin at the beginning. No, sir. We'll start at the end with the very last conscious decision Lee Harvey Oswald ever made, a phone call, or an attempted one, the night before Jack Ruby silenced him forever. What he tried to say, and to whom, may reveal more than anything he ever said while alive. It's a pattern piece, a looking glass, a final unfinished stitch that hints at the design beneath the seams. And here's a teaser for a future episode. We'll be presenting compelling evidence that raises questions about the official ballistics narrative. Finally, we would like to ask that you write down who you, at this very moment, feel was involved and why, and what would have happened had November 22nd, 1963 not happened. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen, and join us as we keep prying at the seams of JFK's American tapestry. Seams from 63's fall still binding us, U.S. Thank you for listening, and I wish you, yes, each and every one of you, only the very, very best of great days.